I'm Victoria, a 29-year-old graphic designer working from home, currently living at my parents' house where I manage both my design projects and daily responsibilities. I'm single at the moment, and my family includes my parents and my brother Marcus, who's been dating Isabella for about a year now. I had always thought that Marcus and Isabella were happy together, but recently Isabella has been visiting us more often. This house belongs to my parents, and I wondered if she might feel awkward during her visits. However, she seemed completely comfortable and confident, unlike me, who often felt intimidated by her polished appearance and social media presence. Isabella had a way of treating me like a close friend, engaging in surprisingly personal conversations. One day, she casually asked me, "Why don't you have a boyfriend? You're a designer, but you dress like you don't care about style at all." I explained that working from home doesn't provide many opportunities for social interactions, making it difficult to meet new people. Isabella nodded knowingly and seemed to understand the isolation. She enthusiastically offered to help, suggesting she could teach me about makeup and fashion since she was a beauty influencer. Isabella's confident approach made me feel like she genuinely wanted to help me improve myself. She encouraged me to step up my game, enhance my appearance, and be ready to make a great impression. I felt grateful for her attention and advice, though something about her intensity made me slightly uncomfortable. At home, I usually wear comfortable clothes and keep my hair in a simple ponytail while working on design projects, practical choices that help me focus on my computer screen for hours. Isabella's comments made me think about my appearance and whether I was missing something important about personal presentation. Since I work from home, I rarely wear makeup, preferring to keep my skincare routine simple and effective. Comfortable clothing is my go-to since there's no need to dress up for video calls with clients. It's hard to imagine working in anything restrictive, and since Isabella mostly sees me in this casual state, she probably assumes this is how I always look. Actually, at Marcus's company events and family gatherings, I always make sure to dress professionally and wear appropriate makeup. But it seems Isabella has never noticed these occasions. One day, Isabella excitedly announced, "Let's go through your closet. I need to see what you're working with, Victoria." Without waiting for my permission, she walked into my room and began examining my belongings with intense curiosity. I paused for a moment, feeling like I should stop her, but recognizing what seemed like genuine concern, I decided to let her continue. I don't have an enormous wardrobe, but I'm selective about my purchases, choosing pieces that reflect my aesthetic sense. My carefully curated collection seemed to catch Isabella off guard. "Wow, I had no idea you owned such expensive pieces. And these design tools and makeup products are seriously high-end," she exclaimed, clearly surprised. She seemed shocked that someone who just stays home could afford brands she coveted for her social media content. As Isabella continued exploring, she handled each piece of my design equipment and examined my makeup collection with growing excitement. After about an hour, feeling that her intrusion was becoming excessive, I gently interrupted, "Isabella, maybe we should wrap this up." Startled by my words, she quickly apologized, "Oh, I got completely absorbed looking at your stuff." She concluded that I didn't need any new purchases for my makeover. Isabella had even pulled out my expensive design tablets and styluses to examine them, leaving everything scattered across my desk, a chaotic mess she showed no intention of cleaning up. "I research and select my design tools and makeup very carefully," I explained, feeling defensive. "My skin is sensitive, and I need equipment that works with my specific workflow, so I've tested various brands before settling on these." Isabella looked genuinely surprised and commented, "With such high-end makeup and tools at your disposal, it seems like such a waste since you work from home and barely use them, right?" I nodded reluctantly, admitting, "Yes, honestly I rarely wear makeup unless I have client meetings or special events. I only use the full setup when it's absolutely necessary." When I mentioned using makeup only when absolutely necessary, Isabella seemed frustrated. She declared with authority, "That's such a waste. Next time I visit, I'm definitely going to teach you some techniques for your social media presence." As Isabella finished going through my belongings and evening approached, she finally decided it was time to leave. I found myself wondering about the real reason for her frequent visits. Could it be that things weren't going smoothly between her and Marcus? This thought made me uneasy. Why would she spend so much time at our house if her relationship with my brother was solid? I couldn't understand Isabella's true motives and felt increasingly confused. Meanwhile, my parents welcomed her constant presence, treating her like a cherished family member, which stood in stark contrast to my growing discomfort. Isn't it wonderful that Victoria has someone to help with her image? We're excited about Isabella's makeover plans for you, they said enthusiastically. They added with concern, but Victoria shouldn't become too dependent on Isabella's help. I agreed outwardly while feeling conflicted inside. The truth was, I had never asked Isabella for beauty advice. My schedule was packed with demanding design projects, and focusing on elaborate beauty routines simply wasn't practical. Isabella's offer to transform my look was entirely her own idea, not something I had requested. From previous encounters, I often felt swept along by Isabella's forceful personality and grand plans. While my parents saw this as supportive behavior, I sometimes wished she would respect my need for personal space, especially since my work required intense concentration. Yet I found it difficult to reject her suggestions outright because they seemed well-meaning, and confronting this issue with my parents, who clearly adored her, felt impossible. With these troubling thoughts weighing on me, I returned to my room and began reorganizing the design equipment Isabella had left scattered around. As I carefully arranged each expensive tool back in its proper place, a sharp realization hit me. Wait, where's my limited edition Wacom stylus? I muttered to myself, a wave of irritation washing over me. I had no memory of misplacing that stylus, and its absence felt particularly alarming given the day's events. Whenever I upgrade my design equipment, I always carefully catalog and store the previous versions. This way, I maintain perfect organization of my expensive tools and supplies. I clearly remembered not disposing of my favorite design pen, a limited edition piece I had purchased just last year that still worked flawlessly. I had meticulously organized it in its designated spot, knowing exactly where each piece of equipment belonged. The last time anyone had accessed my workspace was earlier today when Isabella was exploring my room during her visit. I had stepped out to the kitchen to prepare some coffee and pastries for her, leaving her alone in my room for several minutes. I noticed she had brought her designer bag into my workspace, which would have provided the perfect opportunity to conceal anything without being observed. However, directly accusing Isabella of theft seemed hasty and potentially damaging without solid evidence. Despite my growing suspicions, feeling frustrated but determined not to become a victim again, I decided to take protective action. A month after the incident, anticipating Isabella's next visit, I purchased a small, hidden security camera. As expected, Isabella arrived and excitedly announced she was giving me a total makeover session. She immediately went to my design area, handling my precious equipment, and then set me up on the floor for a makeup tutorial using her own cosmetic collection. Since I had no client meetings scheduled that day, I went to clean off the makeup shortly after she finished the lesson. During this time, Isabella gathered her things, saying she needed to head home. I called out to her, "I've made some coffee and snacks in the kitchen. Please take some time to relax before you leave," making sure she actually departed before I checked my computer. This was necessary because of the surveillance camera I had strategically placed to prevent any future theft or invasion of my workspace. When I reviewed the camera footage, my stomach dropped as I watched Isabella carefully slip several items into her bag, including my expensive makeup brushes and some high-end cosmetics I rarely used. She clearly believed these small thefts would go completely unnoticed. Feeling sick with disappointment and disbelief, I saved the footage to my phone as evidence and prepared to confront my family about what had happened. By coincidence, Marcus was visiting, and as soon as he spotted me, he approached with a frustrated expression. "Hey Victoria, it's been a while. I heard Isabella gave you another makeover session today. You need to stop depending on her so much, you're the reason she feels obligated to keep coming over here," he said accusingly. His comment caught me completely off guard, and I replied, "What are you talking about?" I never asked Isabella for any of this help. His complete misunderstanding of the situation added another layer of anger to an already devastating day. The discovery of stolen design equipment left me burning with rage, but the situation escalated further when Marcus implied that I had been the one constantly inviting Isabella over. Marcus, I never asked Isabella to come here. The makeover sessions were completely her initiative, I shot back. But he responded harshly, what are you even talking about? Isabella has been working overtime trying to help you because you're completely hopeless. Me? Hopeless? I stared at him in shock, unable to process his words. Then, with a condescending laugh, Marcus continued, Mom and Dad told me all you do is sit at your computer all day playing around. Isabella is genuinely concerned about you. She mentioned you have a closet full of designer clothes and expensive equipment. Where does someone like you get that kind of money? You must be draining our parents' finances. We can't let you freeload anymore, that's why Isabella and I are moving in to take responsibility. This accusation hit me like a physical blow. Marcus had decided I was some kind of shut-in, a social dropout, based purely on seeing me work at my computer. But that couldn't be further from the truth. I earn a substantial income through my design work, and my lifestyle represents successful entrepreneurship, not social withdrawal. I had always assumed my parents understood and respected my career choice. When my parents came home, I immediately confronted them about Marcus's outrageous claims. I repeated his harsh words, expecting them to defend me and set him straight. However, their reaction was hesitant and evasive, filled with uncomfortable silences as if they were wrestling with a difficult decision. I demanded an answer. Marcus says he and Isabella are moving in here. Are you actually okay with that, Mom and Dad? Dad responded quietly, well, if Marcus wants to live here, I don't see why we should refuse. Mom nodded in agreement, adding, Isabella really is lovely, and it could be nice having everyone together under one roof. I felt the ground shift beneath me as I heard those words. At that moment, Marcus stepped up behind me with a smug expression and declared loudly, unlike you, a shut-in who just hides at home all day, I actually contribute to society and have a relationship. This family doesn't need someone like you dragging us down. I immediately fired back, I'm not a shut-in. I'm a professional graphic designer working from home. But Marcus continued with obvious disdain, oh, working from home? That's what people say when they've given up on real life. It's basically the same as being unemployed. His words sliced through me, and I felt the painful reality of how fractured our family had become. His ignorance about remote work was astounding. In today's world, countless professionals work remotely, and many earn more than traditional office workers. The prejudice and baseless accusations made this family crisis almost unbearable. Even though I work as an independent contractor rather than a company employee, that doesn't diminish my professional value. Yet standing here, facing contempt from Marcus who dismisses my entire career as worthless, felt devastating. Fine then, pack up your stuff and get out, you pathetic homebody, he commanded. In that moment, both our parents looked back and forth between Marcus and me, muttering things like this is difficult and clearly avoiding taking any stance. It was a heartbreaking scene that revealed everything I needed to know. It seemed everyone had fallen under Isabella's spell, and perhaps she and Marcus had discussed how wonderful it would be to have the entire house to themselves, especially since they were probably planning their future together. In comparison, as a single person, I was seen as unlikely to provide grandchildren, which clearly influenced my parents' priorities. Although I couldn't be certain of my parents' true feelings, the atmosphere made it crystal clear there was no place for me in this house anymore. Yet I kept my composure and refused to shed a single tear. Recognizing my impossible situation, I announced, fine. I'll be taking my design equipment and the furniture I bought with me. This statement visibly shocked Marcus and Isabella. How could someone like you afford professional equipment and furniture? Marcus asked in disbelief. Ask Mom and Dad, everything purchased for this house after you moved out was paid for with my earnings, I stated firmly. After the confrontation, I retreated to my room to pack and began calling my professional contacts for assistance. Once I was out of earshot, Marcus turned to our parents in confusion, questioning how I could possibly afford all that expensive equipment and furniture. Unaware of the full picture, our parents responded cheerfully, "If Victoria is just staying home all day, and since you earn a proper salary, Marcus, we can always buy new things to replace whatever she takes, right?" They even mentioned wanting a new smart TV and updated kitchen appliances, purchases I had always considered unnecessary expenses. Our parents have always been optimistic spenders, apparently unconcerned because Marcus, with his real job, could easily replace anything I took with me. In reality, contrary to the family's perception, I had been quietly paying the mortgage on this house for the past 2 years, a fact I had never disclosed to Marcus. Our parents prefer not to discuss their financial struggles openly. As I watched Marcus repeatedly express concern about money, our parents just laughed it off. "We're completely confident because you're here now, Marcus." I observed this exchange from the top of the stairs while arranging my relocation details. The next day, I was ready to move to a downtown loft I had already secured. Several professional contacts, including a client who owned a logistics company, had offered to help, making the process efficient despite the short notice. As the professional movers and I supervised the packing of my belongings, Marcus and Isabella stood watching, clearly stunned by what was unfolding. I directed the movers to do a final sweep of the house, ensuring none of my expensive equipment was left behind. The day was intense but organized, and by evening, I was prepared to begin fresh in a new environment, leaving behind the misunderstandings and betrayal of my childhood home. After confirming everything was properly loaded, the moving truck departed for my new place. My client who had come to oversee the move asked, "Victoria, should we head to your new studio now?" "I really appreciate you helping me move on such short notice," I said gratefully. "Not at all," he replied. "When you mentioned needing a dedicated creative space for our upcoming campaign, I was happy to assist. This will be perfect for our collaboration." Until that moment, Isabella, who had been silently watching the chaos unfold, suddenly spoke up, "Wait, you're actually a professional designer, and this man is your corporate client?" I nodded, confirming her realization. "I've been planning to move out of my parents' house for months to create a proper professional workspace. It became impossible with someone constantly invading my studio without permission, stealing my design equipment and makeup. I wanted to move earlier, but I was trapped because I've been paying the mortgage on this house. Then you and Marcus decided to take over." I continued, looking directly at Isabella. "I'm actually grateful you're here to deal with my parents, who have a serious spending problem. I won't be sharing my new address with any of you. I can't stand the thought of a thief showing up at my studio. Oh, and since this house is in my name, I'll be putting it on the market." As I spoke, I pulled out my smartphone and played the surveillance footage of Isabella carefully placing my expensive makeup brushes and cosmetics into her bag. Isabella's face went completely white as she watched herself stealing on camera. Marcus and my parents, who had been completely unaware of her actions, now stared at her with shock and disgust. "This isn't what it looks like, Marcus," Isabella frantically explained. "Victoria was just wasting away at home, and it seemed ridiculous that she had all these expensive things. I thought I was helping by putting them to better use." Despite her desperate excuses, the evidence was undeniable. Isabella was a thief, and now everyone could see exactly what she was. I shrugged indifferently and said, "Perfect timing to cut all ties." I climbed into the car with my client. As we pulled out of the driveway, I could see Marcus and Isabella in a heated argument with my parents. If they kept fighting in full view of the neighborhood, it would certainly become the local gossip. To ensure I wouldn't get dragged back into their mess, I immediately blocked all their phone numbers. Months later, at a design conference showcase, a gaunt and desperate-looking Isabella approached me, still wearing the stolen makeup and accessories she had taken from my collection. "Please, I need your help," she begged. I responded coldly, "I'm sorry, but I don't associate with thieves." Without acknowledging the stolen items she was wearing, I walked away. From what I heard through mutual acquaintances, after the house sold, my parents, Marcus, and Isabella ended up sharing a cramped rental apartment. However, My parents returned to their reckless spending habits, creating severe financial pressure since Marcus's inconsistent freelance income couldn't support their lifestyle. I learned they became increasingly demanding and took out their frustrations on Isabella and Marcus. Isabella was forced to take multiple jobs to help cover expenses, leaving her so exhausted that any dreams of marriage or starting a family became impossible. Since I'm no longer part of their chaos, I occasionally hear updates about their struggles while I focus on my thriving design career, peacefully established in my new downtown studio.